The BR Bahn was not just a train, it was a colossal, audacious project that embodied Adolf Hitler's vision for a future of extreme power, luxury, and domination. Imagine a massive locomotive, 6 meters wide and 7 meters high, stretching out to incredible lengths, up to 420 meters for passenger service, and well over a kilometer for freight. This wasn't just any ordinary train. It was a grand, heavily armed mobile fortress designed to carry not just passengers, but an army of soldiers, weaponry, and even tanks. Hidden beneath a dome was an anti-aircraft installation, an indication of how seriously Hitler took his vision for world conquest. Inside, it was a palace on wheels, offering an unparalleled level of luxury that was almost unimaginable. And it all came from the mind of the man who was determined to reshape the world in his image, Adolf Hitler. The BR Bahn wasn't an isolated idea in Hitler's grand plans. He was infamous for his obsession with megalomaniacal infrastructure projects, ones that sought to transform Germany into a monumental superpower. His dreams included building the largest stadium in the world in Nuremberg, a colossal arena that would hold 400,000 people. He envisioned bridges taller than anything the world had ever seen, such as the Alba High Bridge in Hamburg, which would dwarf the iconic Golden Gate Bridge in the United States. These projects were as extravagant as they were impractical, and many were canceled as the tide of World War II turned against Germany. But the BR Bahn stood apart. While other ideas fell to the wayside as the war escalated, this train was Hitler's favorite, and he insisted on pushing it forward, even when it seemed unlikely that the war could be won. In 1941, Hitler declared the BR Bahn a top priority. Despite the severe shortage of steel at the time, the project was granted an extraordinary 84,000 tons of steel to make it a reality. Steel, which was in high demand for weaponry and war materials, was being diverted to this project because, to Hitler, it was indispensable to his vision. His obsession with the train was so great that he personally oversaw its development, even though it was clear that many of his other grand plans would never come to fruition. The BR Bahn was more than just a train. It was a symbol of his unstoppable will and determination to build something worthy of the new world order he dreamed of. The BR Bahn, as it was envisioned, would dwarf any train ever seen before. Initially, Hitler insisted on a 4-meter wide track gauge, far broader than anything in use at the time. After much debate, he was convinced to scale it back to 3 meters, but the sheer scale of the train itself remained astonishing. This was a double-decker train, massive, towering, and imposing. Today, even the largest passenger trains seem tiny in comparison. The interior of the BR Bahn was to be a masterpiece of luxury and technology. Hitler's vision was that no matter where the train traveled, it would be a statement of opulence, power, and invincibility. The upper deck of the train was designed with first-class passengers in mind, offering wide, expansive windows with unobstructed views, perfect for the Nazi elite. The interiors were plush, with ample space, comfortable armchairs, and luxurious furnishings. Below, the second-class carriages were slightly smaller but still spacious by any standard. The third class, while less extravagant, would still provide more comfort than any typical train at the time. Yet what truly set the BR Bahn apart were the many communal areas designed for socializing and leisure. Imagine lounging on luxurious sofas, sipping wine in a bar area, or reading in one of the train's many lounges. The dining car was a standout. It was designed as a space of high elegance, with natural wood paneling, gold accents, and chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. It was planned to be the only single-decker carriage on the train, with ceilings so high that it wouldn't feel like you were even inside a train at all. Beyond the dining car, there were additional restaurants, breakfast rooms, and even a cinema that could seat almost 200 people. A small stage was also included for lectures and performances, turning the train into a traveling cultural hub. But comfort wasn't just for the elite. Hitler wanted this train to travel great distances, and for that, sleeping accommodations were a must. In the first-class carriages, sleeping compartments were designed to be spacious and luxurious, with sofas, armchairs, vanity tables, and large windows providing scenic views. These rooms also featured private bathrooms with sinks, toilets, and showers, something unheard of in most trains of the era. Even second-class passengers had access to smaller rooms, each with a sink and a chance to freshen up in one of the train's bath cars, which were equipped with 4 bathtubs and 20 showers. To top it off, there were plans for hairdressing salons to ensure that no one's appearance would suffer during the journey. Yet, for all the luxury afforded to the Nazi elites, there was a stark contrast for those who were seen as less important. The Eastern worker carriages were a chilling reminder of the train's darker purpose. These were not designed with comfort in mind. In fact, in fact, they were devoid of seats, with only benches for workers to sit on during the day and sleep on at night. These workers, many of whom were forced into labor, had no access to the other parts of the train, and their food would be distributed through a canteen. They were treated as little more than cargo, a stark juxtaposition to the lavish surroundings of their Nazi overseers. So, what was the point of this enormous, heavily armed, and luxurious train? In March 1942, Hitler explained his vision to his state secretary, Hermann Esser, and the architect Hermann Gessler. He detailed his plans to create a high-speed rail system that could transport goods, people, and military forces across vast regions of Europe and beyond. He envisioned trains that could travel at speeds of up to 200 km/h, connecting key locations from Constantinople to the heart of Eastern Europe, and eventually stretching across the globe. This train was meant to be the centerpiece of a rail network that would replace maritime shipping, moving goods, and people with greater speed and efficiency. The BR band wasn't just about luxury or even military might. It was a tool for domination. Hitler saw it as a means to colonize vast areas of Europe and Asia. He dreamed of a railway system that would stretch from Spain to Russia, with plans for a route that would pass through Iran and even reach as far as the Sea of Japan. Another line was to run from Berlin to Moscow, transporting raw materials and workers in one direction, and Nazi soldiers and settlers in the other. The BR-Bahn was a part of Hitler's broader plans for expansion, transporting not only people and goods, but also military forces to reinforce his vision of conquest. Despite the grand plans, the BR-Bahn was never completed. The war's tide was turning against Germany, and the resources necessary for such an ambitious project became harder to come by. After the war, some of the plans for the train were taken to the Soviet Union, and many of the blueprints disappeared into archives. The idea of the BR-Bahn was eventually dismissed by experts within the German rail industry, who saw it as impractical. Yet no one dared to contradict Hitler at the time. His will was absolute. In the end, the BR-Bahn stands as one of the most ambitious, outlandish, and terrifying symbols of Hitler's megalomania. It was an embodiment of his obsession with power, conquest, and control. Albert Speer, the Nazi architect, later remarked that the more monumental a project, the more Hitler was drawn to it, regardless of practicality. The BR-Bahn, with all its grandeur, served as a chilling reminder of how far Hitler was willing to go to impose his vision on the world. Even in the last days of the war, when defeat was inevitable, he remained fixated on the idea of a world transformed by trains, luxurious, heavily armed, and ready to conquer the globe. It was the ultimate expression of his madness, a vision that ultimately never came to fruition, but left behind a terrifying legacy of what might have been.